Thanks for coming. What's left here? It's getting late in the 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. Going to learn a little more about, I guess, the technology side of things. So today's talk about is going to be on mean stack. So I'm going to talk about what the mean stack is. I have a few demos, but the demo that actually says on the abstract is not quite going to work out today. I have another drag and drop, but the application itself, I run into some issues that I didn't have enough time to come back and fix it. So I'll show you where it is at, but I'm probably going to update that repo too. It's available on Github if you guys want to check it out. If you can go to the slide, if you want to follow through, the slide deck is available there. I checked it, it should be available publicly. So yeah, it's just, the public anything. So yeah, I'm going to talk about the mean IO, so the mean in mean.js. So I'll talk about what mean is, and obviously what it came from, contrast it with other stacks that are out there a little bit. And just going to take to each syllable and add in which role it is you probably already know or want to know more about it. Provide you some resources. And I also want to talk about those two. There will be some demos on those mean IO and mean.js. There are two different boilerplate frameworks to get you started. All right, let's see if this works. Let's get going. All right, a little bit about me. My name is Baskin Tapkan. I'm a full-stack software developer working with frameworks such as Angularjs, ASP.NET, Rails. Definitely try to be active in the open source community, learning new technologies. Been attending local user groups like this, the GDG. We meet once a month at Code 42. McAllister College sometimes. Also Angularjs, we started about a year ago. That happens in St. Paul. We meet once a month. I think it's on first week of every month on Wednesdays in virtual. You can Google that too, through the slide deck. In JavaScript, we meet once a month now in Poco Uptown. RubyMN once a month in D-Block Brewery. You can see all these are kind of connected, but they're not quite connected. I have interest in IoT. There's another talk that's happening in Justin Graham's actually, I wanted to be there too, but they just at the same time. So a lot of the open source stuff, NodeJS, we meet once a month. Sport engines, for instance, they have a nice community behind it. And Robert Frey, Mike Frey is leading that. And then actually trying to get a MongoDB startup too. I don't know where that's going to go. I have more interest in Mongo in the last few months. Maybe we can get something going. They just upgraded to 3.0, and maybe they have more momentum coming here. For my regular job, I do also some cloud development. I worked on AWS and Azure. We're trying to lift our infrastructure from, we have a bunch of servers in IP house, move them to the cloud. We don't know yet. It's going to be Azure, most likely Azure because the client pays for it. And then there's AWS. I've been a member of IEEE for a while. I got my degree in Master of Science in Signal Processing. I am originally from Turkey. And I was here last year. That's me. And that's Martin Nomander. He was fun of me. I didn't know him at the time, but I don't know. Did you guys were you here last year? Anybody? Yeah. So this is our second year doing it. So yeah, I was there last year. There's just a little picture there. And it was a good community. Again, the same thing. My hobbies, I like to windsurf and kiteboard and snowboarding. I've been trying to doing that for a while. I learned windsurfing back in the 80s. And then the last few years I've been dabbling in kiteboarding and snow kiting when it's available out on the water or the ice. I just finished my first ice snow kiting race up in Relax. It's 14 miles. It's kind of grueling, but was able to do that. We have a good community around there. There's, I would say, about 150 some people around in Twin Cities. I like to take a trip to Hood River once a year. The reason this Hood River is that's the river that with a lot of wind. It's just naturally, I don't know if anybody's traveled there, but it's always wind in the summertime. What happens is Portland is cold, the coast is cold, and then the desert heats up, so there's a big air coming in the alley and just a lot of wind. So playing out there, this is a lot of fun. You go in there. And then the next week or two, we're going to go to South Padre for a week to get away from the cold, but now it's getting warmer here too, so that's good. Alright, and we have 3 dogs, right? These are 3 dogs, visiting dog. So they take a lot of our time too, just walking those guys up. My guy is Baxter. I got married, she came with 2 dogs, Izzy and Naya. And then the third one is Mozart, he's visiting dog. But they're a lot of fun, just playing with the animals. Alright, so let's talk about MongoDB, mean stack. So mean stands for M is the MongoDB, which is the database part of things. It's a NoSQL database. And we have E is for Express. Express is a web framework. Is a web framework which also built on NodeJS. So Node is the server-side framework for its JavaScript. And Angularjs is the front end, as you may already know. So a lot of people are familiar with this. You've been using it. I don't know, but that's just gonna be, I'm gonna talk about these in detail a little bit later. But that's kind of what this deck is right now. Hear that? So the why me? Let's talk about that why me. I guess one of the big things is, the reason that I have this talk is, I don't know if you've seen Jeff earlier, one of the organizers. A couple of years ago, we were at the Twin Cities Code Camp. My background is also, I have done a lot of .NET and stuff, so we've been struggling with these different languages coming up every year, and then changing, you learn one thing, and then the server side is different. So the biggest thing with the mean stack is one language for every stack, which is JavaScript. So that's a big plus for a lot of people, so you don't have to learn a new language, you can just use one and learn it very well, and then use it on different stacks. The other biggest one for me is the operating system independence. So if you look at it today with the Node.js being available on every operating system, Apple, macOS, Windows, Linux, Android even, so that is a big problem for doing this. And then we also have a LAMP. LAMP is the old one. I mean, the reason that LAMP became, I think, is because that it was the LAMP stack. The LAMP stands for Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. And you can see the similarity there, but I think it stops right there because they're all discrete technologies. There is nothing like JavaScript that's uniting those, PHP or Perl, I guess, to be useful. I mean, today you look at today's talks, a lot of talks are around these technologies. We see a couple of stacks, and we also have Android. And you can see like JSON being used multiple places is our data transfer. This used to be XML a couple of years ago, but now we have JSON, which is more human-friendly, readable, reusable. We have tons of support modules, like NPM is one of the things that allows us to use different modules. So as of, I'll touch that later. Okay, so for MongoDB, so it's derived from the world. It's Mongoose, it's just a wordplay on that. It's a scalable NoSQL database. Handles document storage. We have, it uses the objects as a BSON format. It's a JSON format, but internally it's BSON format. There was Android talk earlier, they talked about JSON format. There's all these sounds, I guess, script object notation. So JSON, JavaScript object notation. I think B is for binary script notation. So that's what we're using for the schemas. For mean stack, we also use a Mongoose. I'm gonna show in the application, but I don't have a slide for it. But then Mongoose module, yeah, there's I mentioned that in here for the shell. So you can interact with the MongoDB a couple of ways after you install it. Installing is very straightforward. It is supported again all the OSs. You can just go to mongodb.org. I think I have, you can click on it, you can just Google search it, and not a big deal. You should be able to get all the information from there. And then RoboMongo, I'll do a little demo with RoboMongo. It's a more GUI-friendly module, so you can see your schemas, collections, things like that. All right. So in this slide, I'm going to show you a few CRUD operations. So CRUD stands for create, read, update, and delete. So the CRUD is one of the, if you're running a business application, the CRUD operation is one of the big thing, CRUD is one of the big things that you have to deal with today, just because it's a business wanted to store data, transactions, things like that. So one of the big things. So in this slide, I'm showing you the, so I don't have the game right now running, but it's just like the first name of the person, positions, as you can tell, and it's just a JSON presentation of that data. And you just say, so your DB is your database. You can switch So the games will be the name of the database, sorry, the collection will be the games, and you insert this object, and after you insert it, you can see this is like a read find one. You can do a filter on that. It's pretty, very easy to start with. I think the MongoDB starting with Mongo is a very good prelude to just to start with. That barriers to learning is pretty low for MongoDB. But unless you're doing something like aggregate frameworks and aggregation frameworks, which is pretty intensive. So I have that part I'm going to gloss over places out of the scope. Then we have the updating the player, for example. In this case, you just say the player's name, and then you set it to whatever that name, whatever that value you want to set it to. And deleting is just removing the filter on that. So that's pretty much it for CRUD. But yeah, it's just pretty easy to start with. So I say go ahead and play with it. The thing with that is once you install it, there's a service called MongoDB, and that's going to be running on it. It typically runs on that 270717 port. If you want to use this instance outside, you want to open this port on your firewall, as well as just give rights to external access. So there's a MongoDB.cfg, there's a config file that needs to be changed a little bit. But otherwise, it's pretty easy to start with. And some resources. MongoDB, a little background. So MongoDB is actually accompanied by 10gen. Used to call themselves 10gen. Now they changed their name to MongoDB. And they run this website. It's open source, but they own the whole platform. They have a thing called University. If you want, I just started this last year. They have I did on Python last year. Last year was a lot of fun. Just about 7-week course. You can go through this. They have a homework every week. So it's about 2-3 hours, I think, maybe 4 hours. So then there's a final. You get graded on that. So that's available. I think and then the books that I recommend is the MongoDB in Action, the Definitive Guide, and the Design Patterns. I haven't read that one, but I use these quite a bit. And yeah, for the installation, again, this is if you go to docs.mongodb, you get the whole slew of information that we want to do. What it is not is obviously not a SQL database. It doesn't relational database. It doesn't do relations. You have to go. There's a cursor object. You have to go and combine find your records that way, or your objects in this case, documents. All right. Any questions?
Yeah. I think that's what's hard for me to wrap my head around with, just all NoSQL. I don't know how to think like a NoSQL dev. So it's I'm used to trying to come up with model objects that sort of mirror a certain relationship, and then that will sort of oftentimes map to a normalized table, right? Some sort of normalized database tables. But you don't do that.
Yeah.
You avoid that with the Mongo stack, right?
Pretty much. So you have typically we have the person object. We have another another table called addresses, right?
Yeah.
We have an address ID and then closing. So right now, because the way this information is so cheap, you can just duplicate that address inside that object, so they don't store the same one person object as that address in it. So you're right. You don't have another separate collection, but you can if you really need that. But that's not the model there, because you want to push all your data in one model. The nice thing is this really works well with when you look in your UI, all your objects can be you don't have to do any translations, no ORM. ORM stands for object relational mapping, so you don't have that. So it cuts that middleman, if you will. I mean, it's a different mindset. So it's not for everything. I don't recommend banks are using the MongoDB because there's no transactions. You don't want your deposit being lost or. Yeah, that's one thing. That's the thing. There's ways to it. I used it. I have an Arduino at home with data collection, temperature collection systems. I'm using it for just getting temperature data in the house and putting them on the database and putting some other little things. But it's not really, it's not there yet. So let's see. It's still developed. 3.0 just came out this month. And they have 8, 9, 10 speed increases. So you can think that why is it that slow before? So there's what they're claiming. They bought a new company, WireTiger, I think. It's a new engine. You know anything about Mark? So we just have this. That's just going to change. So that's about Mongo. We can come back and talk about it. There's Mongoose. Mongoose is a schema which kind of elevates that. You'll see in a minute that they have a schema in the middle in Node.js module. So you can use that to get a little schema that does validations on your data, which is nice. Then we also have Mongo Labs and Mongo HQ, which are online. Like we looked at Firebase this morning. It's kind of like that, but these are MongoDB on the cloud. So you can just you can use Mongo Labs or Mongo HQ. They are limited. Obviously, you don't know that data. It's only on about 512 megabytes unless you pay. I don't know what their pay model is, but that's about it. So let's dive and talk about Node and Node.js. Node is obviously is our server-side JavaScript engine. It is built on it's using Google's V8 code, which is C++, running in the backend on the operating level. It's driven by, the biggest thing about Node is obviously is the non-blocking I/O, and it's driven on asynchronous calls. There's a notion of callbacks. If you know all this stuff, I'm just going to really gloss over it. But again, callbacks are the biggest things. So what happens is when the code executes, the stack goes into a call. The code executes in the stack. When you have another that's a long-running task or a callback, you can just push that to a task queue, and in that task queue, there's an event loop that looks in the stack. So if the stack goes, and as soon as the stack is empty, the event loop manager pushes that call into the stack again, so that gets executed. That's why it's so fast. It's a non-blocking, and it really helps out with a lot of different big websites are running on this. PayPal, eBay, Gap, they all have Node.js. So it's streams and buffers. So again, the same thing with that. These are you can do create stream, write stream, read stream. You can buffers. There is a notion of callback how. This is also interesting because the code can be written such that they also call it the Christmas tree. It can be written like you have function error, if error, you can just do that. There's examples if you look at Google.callback how, you see that why not to do, but there are ways around that. You can use name functions, keep your functions and modules separately so you can throw around avoiding that. And the other biggest thing is the modules. So you have, the module is NPM, I think it's Node module. What's NPM stand for? I don't know what it was. Node package, thank you. So you have, I should have done that. They should have modules. They have 130,000 modules in NPM, and it's still growing. So anything you want to do with Node, just look at it. It's always there. Which package you want to use, but there's examples out there. So the community support is huge. The Node.js resources, the good place. I was impressed to see that actually. Joint does a really nice job of a lot of different disparate sources. It's maintained by Joint right now, Node.js, and there's an IO.js, which I'll mention at the end, but that's what we have. So Joint is the Node.js official. The current release is 0.12. It's still 0.12. It's been 0.10 for a long time, just got up to 12. Then, like Front-End Master is another company in town. They do a nice job with like a lot of front-end learning stuff, and they have a nice good Node.js courses. And this course I finished by Kevin Winery, who works at Twilio. He did this about a year ago. It's an update, but it's pretty good to get going. There's tons of information out there. This is another one that what the pieces are. Node School I/O. You can take these classes with Node School. It's an NPM module. Here's a thing called like Learn Me Node. It's one of the easy ones to start with. And you can just do like 12 different modules to learn about Node. And the books are obviously good resource to have. I like the books because I don't have to Google for a long time. I get a really good section. I had a good starting sense for otherwise sometimes it gets dry. All right, let's talk about Express. Express is the middle framework. It's kind of, they call the middleware. It's a series of middleware calls that you just put in your routes. Again, you're dealing with the HTTP, so you're dealing with the request response. Request is an object that HTTP, maybe I'll just show you the website here. So yeah, from getting started, you get the same thing. You can have the basic routes. The hello world is pretty easy to start with. You require Express and Node module, and you have a request response that I just showed that earlier. That's an HTTP object. It has a property request and response. So you just send response hello world. That's just very easy to start with. To get something coming up on your web page is pretty easy. You can specify the port address. You can do the same thing with Node, but the nice thing with Express is it gives you more of a framework. So you have routes. You have control over your routes. It's one of the biggest things. Otherwise, if you want to do the same thing with Node, you have to write if-else statements, right? You just have to deal with that. You can, yeah. So let's see. Okay, for Express.
Sorry for interrupting. For Express and Node, could you tell us a little bit more about the difference between those?
So Express is built on Node. It's a Node module, and it gives a more framework. So for the routes and requests and response, more robust. It's faster than the Node. Node has an HTTP object too. Go ahead.
Yeah. So if you're just using Node, Node's at its core is pretty good for like API stuff, just like dumping out JSON.
Yeah.
But if you actually want to like have a HTML template, you have to write that part for Node. So Express handles that kind of stuff.
Template pages, exactly. It has
There's all kinds of that.
Got it. Thank you.
That's huge. Yeah. That's right here. If you got the template engines, the middleware, and you can have different things. You can put an authorization in the middle to that also another piece, all pluggable pieces. Like in this case, you see up here, the auth is just being injected into the route. So that is required for that. And it also supports I would say dozen yet. Plus, I looked at this. There's quite a few template engines that you can use. Again, these are also routed to that app, Express app. Good point, thank you. Any other questions? Express. Yeah, Express is pretty good. It's been there for a while. It's also owned by a company named Strong Group, I believe. But there's also another one coming up, which is owned by Happy. It's called Happy. It's another framework similar to Express. It's more enterprisey. It's also getting.
That's Walmart.
Walmart, exactly. Walmart's Happy is designed. I heard some changes there too. That's what the mentioned earlier. So it'll be interesting to see. But that's what the E is here. So it's in the E area in Express. Moving forward. All right, now Angularjs. Okay, this is kind of really make the web front end coding comfortable, enjoyable for me. Finally, this is when I saw Angular the first time last year. It's been over a year. We've been doing this jQuery runkiness for a long time, updating the DOM from different things, and finally, okay, here's something that I can get my hands on. So yeah, it's just this is going to be a really quick introduction to Angular if you haven't used it. It's by Google. It is another web application framework. Gives you a lot of good tools for two-way data binding. Right now we have data binding. We have controllers, modules. It's an MVC framework. I think they call it super heroic framework in the website, so I'm not sure where that's from. But it's just lots of power to it. The logo is pretty cool too, I think. It's just like HTML5, CSS type logo. Yeah. So yeah, it's just if you want to jump in, feel free to jump in. But yeah, we've been using it for a while. We adapted about 1.5 years ago. A lot of things are different things. Modular testability is huge for us. The directives, creating modular code. So I'll talk about the controllers. Controller is the MEC, and the MEC is model view controller. So the controller is the middle part, and that's the part that creates the scope element and binds to the model, to the UI, to the ng controller. So that's available. You can use this. The controller should be light in the MEC framework, right? You have your directives, your factory, your services, where all the interactions happening. But that's kind of a controller sits in the middle and just orchestrates all the events coming back and forth. We have modules. The biggest one is the ng app is the module. You can have multiple modules in an Angular application, and that's how we keep things tight and clean. so you don't even leak out anything to outside the global namespace. We have directives. Directives are reusable components. Earlier you may have seen Lloyd's talk about the polymer. I see this coming like I just watched the NGConf video on YouTube. There's going to be a lot of cross-pollination between these directives and polymer, especially with the Angular 2.0. I'm really excited to see that. Wow, that's going to shake up. There's going to be a lot of changes. Obviously, it's going to bring some changes, but that's the way how we innovate. So yeah, we got to work on that and get more about it. Animations are for different UI elements. You can just create them with ng animate. You can use that for the animation attribute. Services. These are services are between services and factories. Our services are new. You can move up an instance. If only one available with factories, it's a new factory each time. So you can just return an object to you, and you can put attributes to that too. In the demos, I'll just show you a few of those, how they work. Scopes are the data model between the view and the controller, if you will. So that's how we do our data binding. Expressions are the two curly signs that you put stuff in the middle and they get rendered in the front end through Angular's magic. Also two-way data binding. Testing is built big in Angular. They support Jasmine and Protractor for end-to-end testing. We have dependency injection. Another thing that is huge in Angular is just testing is built in, which really gets you testing. And there's no reason not to test anymore because it makes it so easier. They have Angular mocks, so all that is well thought of. Actually, one of the reasons that I really liked about testing was that I really like to have testing because been trying to practice this TDD concept for a while and trying to have it on my coworkers. I don't get all the buy because our clients don't pay for our test. So we gotta cut we don't have time for this. Okay, let's skip that. So we'll get a deal with that occasionally. But still, it's there if you really want to do good testing. Test coverage. Okay, this was a talk, this was actually downstairs.
So can I ask you a question about Angular?
Yes.
So in your experience, having worked with Angular for a while, what kind of applications does it lend itself well for, and what kind of things web apps should you not try to use Angular for?
Great question. If I can answer it, I will be the forms overlay that we've been using that. We have the two-way data binding is huge. So being able to update the document and then send it back to the client, that is one of the things. For maybe not as big for a gamer, I think. You want to comment on that, Madonna? I haven't done a lot of things that
I would say that I can't really think of much you wouldn't want to.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Necessarily just because it doesn't mean you have to use every single aspect of it, but having a framework that kind of enforces like some organization, and you get stuff like dependency injection. I mean, it doesn't mean that there's not going to be some rough edges depending on what you're doing. I don't know. I can't think of anything offhand that you can't do in it.
Right. From what I remember is, I think it was one of the conferences talks that Misko was saying that if you have a lot of things that are on your scope and down, because there's always got to be watched and everything, you can't have performance issues. So like Gmail or Gmail account, if you want to write that in Angular, it will be pretty intensive. I remember that was about 6 months ago. So I'm not sure.
That would be a problem even with pure JavaScript. Like that.
That's right.
That's not a trivial app.
Correct. Yeah. So many things happen.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. So again, next up is our task runners. So why do you want to use a task runner? Task runners are actually pretty simple if you think about it. There are two options that are available today, and I heard a new one downstairs called Brunch. I didn't use it, but the guy actually had it only for a couple of weeks ago too. So that was a task runner. So the biggest difference between Grunt and Gulp is one is a configuration that is focusing on code, and Gulp is a newcomer. It's relatively newer than the Grunt. And Grunt, you heard us earlier too, is a little slower because it has to set up all the objects for the task, and each task is independent of each other. Grunt, then with Gulp, you can pipe the tasks. But the question is, why do you want to use a task runner? Because you want to use it because there are so many objects in your projects that you want to maybe minify things, you want to concatenate, you want to create one file. maybe you want to use SAS or some other CSS translators that you want to make your code, or yeah, things like that. So you want to automate things. It's all about automation. So that's why you want to use a task runner. And I'm a little bit new on the Gulp. I've used the Grunt for a while, and the mean.io and mean.js. The mean.io guys are using Gulp, but because they are newer, the JS is kind of a little stale right now. And yeah, that's